Welcome to CSC200 game programming. This is part C of the fourth iteration of Space Invaders. So if you have not watched and followed along with parts A and B, you need to go do that before you try to work your way through this one, part C. Part C is going to be adding sounds to our game. And to do this, that means we will need some sounds. You're going to need 4 sounds. One sound for the player when it fires and creates a bullet, a second sound for the enemy when it drops a bomb, a third sound for the enemy when it is hit by a player bullet and is destroyed, and a fourth sound for the player when it is hit by an enemy bomb and destroyed. Where do you get these sounds? You try searching on Google and look for Creative Commons sounds, or you can go to Audacity and create the sounds yourself, or you can do a combination. Go get a sound that's close to what you like, that's a Creative Commons, pull it in, open it with Audacity, make the modifications to it that you would like to. But you will need those 4 sounds. So I'm going to pause for a minute so you can go find a sound for when the player fires a bullet, a sound for when the enemy drops a bomb, a sound for when the enemy is hit by a player bullet and is destroyed, and a sound for when the player is hit by an enemy bomb and is destroyed. Now I'm going to pause here for a minute to give you plenty of time to pause this video, go find your 4 sounds, save them anywhere on your computer, and when we come back, I'll show you what to do with them. So we will pause now. Okay, so at this point, you should have your 4 sounds someplace on your computer. And what you need to do with those is drag them into the assets folder for this game, this iteration, and make sure that you place them in a folder that you have created called resources. Now make sure it is named resources with a capital R and place them in the folder. We'll take a look at why in a little bit. Okay, so now then, first thing I want to do now that we're ready to go is take a look at the main camera. And when you see the main camera, over under Inspector, you'll see one thing that is added to the camera is an audio listener. And this is the spectator that is watching and listening to everything that's going on. Wherever the camera is located, that's where the listener is located. So if you're far away from sounds with the camera, then the sounds will be muted. If you're very close to sounds with the camera, then the sounds will sound as though they're right next to you. Okay, so that's just something that's built in, just something for you to be aware of. Now then, let's go double check and make sure that we have our sounds where they're supposed to be. I have created a folder called Resources, capital R, and I copied my 4 sounds into that one folder. And they have shown up just like they are supposed to be. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have these sounds in this particular folder. Why resources and not sounds? Just using the name resources, that will come with some nice little features that we will make use of that does not come with a folder called sounds. All right, so to put the sounds into the game, there's 2 major ways that we're going to look at. One is that you just attach the sound to an object that's in the game, and the other is that you do create a script that launches the sound. And we're going to do 2 sounds with adding them to objects and 2 sounds with scripts. So the first one is to attach the sound to a game object. So I'm going to go to, well, let's see. One of the sounds is that we have the player has fired their sounds. The player has launched a bullet. And I believe I would like to add it to the bullet, not to the player, but I'm going to add it to the bullet, and I'll show you why. Let's see. So I'm going to go to prefabs. I'm going to select player bullet. And the player bullet is instantiated multiple times. Every time somebody hits the space bar, we get a player bullet. Well, every time somebody hits the space bar, we want that sound to go off. So we could put it when the space bar is hit, but that would be with code. We're going to do this with attaching it to an object. So what I would like to have happen is every time that the player bullet prefab is instantiated or cloned, I want that sound to occur. So to do that, I'm going to come over and I have selected player bullet. Okay, let me scroll up so you can see that we're working with. Okay, here's the player bullet. All right, now I want to add the sound to it, so I go to Add Component, and instead of sounds, this is going to be under Audio. And so if you type in audio, here are some options. Now, we already have an audio listener that's attached to the camera, and I am looking, and there's nothing directly to allow me to put a sound with this. So I'm going to select audio source. And the best way I've heard this described, an audio source is essentially the speaker through which the sound will play. All right, so I have set up the speaker audio source, but now I need to tell it exactly the sound that I want it to play. So I'll come back over to resources, and this is a player bullet, and the sound that I pulled in, I called laser gun. It just sounded good, and so I brought it in. Okay, so I'm going to, now if I just click this, I've clicked, but I'm holding the button down. If I just click it, it's going to change the inspector to tell me about laser gun, and I don't want the inspector to change. So I'm going to click and drag, and notice it doesn't like any of these places to put it, but as I get up here to audio source and tell it which clip I want it to play, yeah, it'll fit right there. And so now then that goes with every time a player bullet is instantiated, this sound will also be instantiated and will play. So let's go see if that's working for us. So I'm going to click on play, and I have shared sound with this window, so you should be able to hear it through the video. All right, there comes the bombs, but here goes. So every time that you hear that, and if I get over here, I get a little bit longer because the bullet lasts a little bit longer as it goes underneath one of the barriers. So yes, that is working. All right. Now I want to do the same kind of thing with the enemy bomb that's going to be dropped. So I'm going to go back into prefabs. I'm going to find the enemy. In this case, it's called enemy bomb. And again, let me scroll up, make sure we're with the right one. Okay, so enemy bomb. And I'm going to scroll down. And again, I'm going to add a component. And since the last thing I messed with was audio, it's still there. And this is an audio source. Again, this is a speaker for the sound to play through. Now I have to tell it which sound to play. So again, I'll go back to my resources, and I will find enemy bomb, and I'm going to click and drag it over and drop it right there. And so now then, same thing, every time an enemy bomb is instantiated, then this sound will also be instantiated and will play immediately. So if I go back and play the game now, we should hear sounds of bombs dropping and being able also to hear bullets being fired. Okay, so you can hear the sound of the bombs, and you can hear the bullets being fired. Let's see if I fire here. Okay, so both of us got wiped out on that last little bit right there. Okay, now then, well, that gets those to play, and that's how you do it. If you want the sound to go with when something is created, then you can add in an audio source, drag in the sound to it, and whenever that prefab is cloned, then you'll get the sound that goes with it. Okay, so now let's do two of them by using a script to play the sound. And this, of course, working with scripts, going to be a little bit more to it. One of the things that we're going to need at this point then is a sound manager. And we need it simply so that we can add an audio source to the game itself. Okay, so over here in the hierarchy, right click, and I'm going to create an empty. And I'm going to come to this empty and rename it to be Sound Manager. Yeah, well, it's not managing a whole lot, but we've got to have it there. Okay, so that makes a nice, good name for it. Now then, in Sound Manager, I want to add a component, and I need to add in an audio source. Now, in this particular case, I don't have any single audio that I want it to play. I need it to be able to play any audio that I request it to play. So to go along with that, I'm going to add a component, and at the bottom of whatever you've been searching, you'll always see something that says new script, and I'm going to call this script play sound. So spell it right, helps a whole lot. Play sound. Okay. Yeah, that's too specific. Let's come up a level on that name. Just call it sounds. Okay. And I'll create and add that. And let's see, looking for it. Well, where did it go? Don't see it here. There's sound script there, but where is it actually? Well, if I'll go back and look, it dropped it into assets, and I'm going to go ahead and move it over into scripts. Okay, so now then in scripts, I have sounds, and that's the one that I want to make changes to. So I'm going to double click it. And yeah, I'll go ahead and reload. Let's see, make sure I am sharing the appropriate screen with you now. Okay, that should be the appropriate screen. Now, here's just the default that you get for sounds. Well, in this thing, I only want sounds to do one thing, and that is literally play a sound. So I'm going to come up here, and we don't need any of the collections, so I'll get rid of those. And I don't need either start or update for what I'm doing here, so I'll get rid of those. And then I'll align the curly braces as I like them. Okay, so in this particular class, I want it to do one thing, and so I'll add that in here, public void, and I want this to be play a sound. So I just put it play sounds. That's what I was thinking of a couple of minutes ago. And for this to work, whoever calls me and says play sounds needs to tell me the name of the sound. So I say, okay, you're going to give me this as a string, and I'll just simply call it clip name, the name of the clip that you want me to play. Okay, and let's add in our curly braces here. And not a lot to this. I want to take you back and show you what the code is about to do. So let me change my share again so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, if I go to my prefabs and I look at player bullet and I gave it a sound audio source to go with, okay? So if I go and say, hey, find this audio source and let's set the clip to whatever they ask me to, I can do that. And so when I'm going to come find in Sound Manager the audio source, and in that audio source, I'm going to tell it what clip I want, and I can do that in software, and then tell it to play it. Okay, so going back now to my code, and as I code this in, perhaps I'll make a little bit more sense to you now. Okay, so I'm going to say, all right, sounds, get a component. And that's something that you have. Okay, so I'll let it finish typing that in for me. Okay, get component. The component that I want you to get is the audio source. Okay, now then go get that particular component, and that's the complete syntax for getting the component. Now then, what I want you to do is change the clip that you're going to play to be equal to, now this is why we used resources a minute ago. It is recognized when I use it right here. It knows what I'm talking about. Resources.load, Okay, and I want to load in an audio clip. And the audio clip that I want to load in is called clip name. That's what I called it. They handed me the clip name. So I'll go to my audio source and say, hey, the clip you're supposed to play is whatever name they gave me. Here's hoping they gave me a solid name. If not, problems. Okay. Now then that you know what clip we're after, get component, audio source. So in other words, I'm just talking the same part again. And what I want you to do in this case is a function that you can do called play. So once I have set up the sound manager, added this code to the sound manager, then anybody else can refer to the sound manager and say, in your sounds thing, play the sounds and play this particular sound, and then that will occur. Okay, so let me save this. Try again, there we go. Okay, got that saved. Now if I go back into my code, all right, there's my sound manager with an audio source. Well, what am I gonna do with this? Well, let's go see. Let's take a look at the player. And in the player, I'm going to add in a player script. Don't have one yet. Let me go double check. Well, I do have one. So let me go pull up the player script. Oh, there it is. I just didn't see it. It's up here. Player script. Okay. So I'm going to go to player script. And on this, this is how we dealt with I got hit by a bomb, and that was in the prior part. So that's why you need to see that before you get to this. Okay, I want to do something before I destroy this game object. And this game object is the player. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell it to play the destruction sound. And because if I destroy it first, then there's nothing there for me to talk to. So I'm going to say game object dot find sound manager. Okay, and close the quote and close the parentheses. Okay, I want you to go find that sound manager. And this spelling has to match the spelling in the Unity game itself. So make sure you get that spelled correctly. Then I'm going to say get a component. And that's kind of what we were doing just a second ago, except this time I'm not getting the component from this object. I'm getting a component from another object called Sound Manager. The component that I want you to get is the code sounds. Oops. S-O-U-N-D-S. Okay. And let's see, get that component, and that does require parentheses with it to call it. And in that component, I'm going to ask it to do the function play sounds. Okay, now then, the thing I need is the exact name of the sound that's there. And I'm going to, behind the scenes here, go double check real quick on my resources. And I want the sound, and this will be the player explodes is the name of the sound. Okay, so coming back in on my side, so the play sounds is quote player explodes. And I need to go check my capitalization because that matters as well. Try that again. Okay, now then this is saying, okay, no syntax errors, but let me make sure I spelled that name right. And that is a lowercase p. So yes, that is capitalization is right. So this is what I want to have happen, is the player explodes. Okay, so that sound is going to play, but there's a problem. And the problem is that as soon as I destroy that object, the sound quits. And I want the full sound to play. All right, so that means I have to find some way of pausing in between these two. There's multiple ways to do that. The one I'm going to use is just say time dot time scale. Make sure I get my capitalization right here. And I'm going to set that equal to 0. And essentially what that does is just stop time. And so this sound will play until the very end. And when it gets through playing, then I can get past this time scale equals 0, and then the game object will be destroyed. So let me save this. Okay. And go see if the game object can be destroyed. Those of you that's heard this sound before know to turn your volume down at this particular point. Let's go see if I've remembered everything in this case. All right, so as soon as I can, I'm going to let the player get destroyed. Sound. I did warn you, turn your volume down. Okay, well that sound is really rather loud. Is there anything you can do about it? Well, one thing that you can do is that you can also set the volume. If we go back and look at, oh, let me just stop this now. Okay, if we go back and look for this sound, okay, resources, and you can, if you select it directly, then it pulls up its own little item going on over here, and you'll see how tall the sound is on that. The taller the sound, the louder it is. Okay, so where can we adjust this? Well, if I go back to Sound Manager, one of the things that can be done, one of the options you can get to is volume. And 1 is as loud as it goes, 0 is as quiet as it goes, and before you play the sound, you can quiet it down. Or you could just simply go back into Audacity and tone it down some of that. Either way works. Okay, well, let's go through now and do the same kind of thing for the enemy. When the enemy is struck by the bullet, then we want to, where's my script? Pull up my script. Oh, go to scripts. We want to make sure the enemy makes a blow-up sound as well. Okay, so I've got to destroy this game object. And before I destroy the game object, I'm going to do the same thing. Game object dot find. And again, the object I wish to find, oh, capital G. Let's get all this right as we go. The object that I wish to find is the Sound Manager. Okay, so I've got that. And once I find the Sound Manager, then I want to get component. And one of the components that is in Sound Manager is the script called sounds. Okay, so it'll find that. And then I'm going to again call play sound. And I think it was play sounds. And in this, I've got to put the name of the sound that I wish to be played. And to make sure I get it right, I'm going behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, I'm going to go back and double check my sounds. And I have a player explodes, and I also have an enemy explodes, again with the lowercase e. So the sound that I'm after is enemy explodes. And then just because I'm used to me, I'm going to double check, make sure I read that right. Yep. Okay, so that is right. And that should be called. Again, depends upon how long the sound actually is. This one I think I could get by without having to put the time thing in there, but might as well be safe. Time dot time scale equals 0. And again, it'll let the sound completely play. Okay, and I had misspelled component there for those of you that had noticed it and were hollering at the screen. Okay, I did get that fixed. All right, so let me go through here now and save that. And go back and see if the enemy will make a sound. So this time I've got to not be destroyed by the enemy, but I need to destroy the enemy. So I'm going to come over here and get set up for him. Got him. And you could hear the sound that happened on that. All right. That is part C, adding sounds.